what's going on? So now right here, I want to actually go into more greater detail in regards to the relevance of this entity right here. The lotus head god is known as Lajja Gauri or Lajja Gauri, however it's pronounced. And why it is that it seems to be in the hip hop world, especially when it comes down to female rappers, there seems to be an alignment with this deity right here, right? And supposedly Lajja Gauri translates to modest Gauri, but I'm going to show you that there's nothing really modest about this deity whatsoever at all, and um, it's really a horror archetype, mother goddess type of deity. They call it the deity of fertility and sexuality, right? But they say that Lajja Gauri translates to modest Gauri. That that cannot be further from the truth. That there's nothing modest about this individual right here. But we're going to actually go into detail about this entity right here, and also how she's represented in other cultures. Because, like I said, all of these goddesses, they're basically the same or different components of one another, right? They all go back to Eve, Inanna, and all of the deities coming out of Sumeria. And basically, with the female rappers behind the scenes, maybe growing up, but definitely behind the scenes, they're being instructed on these deities, how to align themselves with these goddesses, how to worship them. And when they come out and they do this pose right here that supposedly they got from Lil Kim, they say they're trying to pay homage to Lil Kim. That is not what they're doing at all. But we're going to get into it right here. I ain't going to keep going on about it. All right, so we're just going to check out the AI overview of Lajja Gauri, right? So the AI says Lajja Gauri, a fertility deity found in Indian art, has parallels and connections to other cultures across the globe, right? Across the whole world. So all of the deities, all of the female goddesses, regardless to what they seem like or how they look in every other cultures, they're all just different cultural renditions or remixes of the same deities. I'm not saying that they all come from her, from this particular goddess, but they're all different components or different versions of each other, right? So particularly those associated with ancient fertility cults and goddesses of sexuality, right? So they say that this is a modest a modest deity. Like I said, there's nothing modest about it at all. And notice it says ancient fertility cults, because all of this is occultic, right? So within these cults, they have their ways that they are instructed on venerating that deity, right? And that involves ritualistic sacrifices, blood drinking, orgies, sex magic. This is the type of stuff that they're getting into behind the scenes back then, way up until today, because they're still carrying over the occultic practices of the ancient world in the higher levels of this society. So the celebrities, politicians, so on and so forth, when people talk about the Illuminati, all that really is that they're just carrying over the principles and the occultic practices of the ancient Babylonian Kemetic mystery system, right? So continuing on, her iconography featuring a squatting posture and exaggerated features, right? The exaggerated features is intentionally exaggerated to put emphasis on the notion that she's a fertility goddess. So big breasts, a big vagina, thighs, and so on and so forth. That's all that really. That's why they're exaggerating, those features, to put emphasis on, she's fertile, right? Let me see, what was I at? Exaggerated features resonates with representations of fertility goddesses like Inanna, who's a Sumerian deity, and Ishtar in Mesopotamia, as well as similar figures found in the Indus Valley civilization, right? So now we're going to actually go into Inanna and Ishtar and see what they say, because they're letting you know that just that this is the AI letting you know that this deity is in alignment with these other deities, right? Now let's look into what they actually say about Inanna and Ishtar, right? All right, so before we continue on to Inanna, I want to address something that I stated in regards to how it is that they go about venerating the fertility goddesses that they worship within these fertility cults. The one that we're addressing now, obviously, is the Lajja Gauri. So what I stated was that they engage in blood sacrifices, because they do. So whenever you're seeing these female rappers and they're doing that squat pose where they claim that they're paying homage to Lil Kim, that's not what's really going on. They learn about that stuff behind the scenes. They learn about these deities and how to venerate them. So in the ancient world, the way that they went about venerating this deity was engaging in blood sacrifices and rituals. In the modern world, they're venerating that same deity, so they're doing the same thing behind closed doors, right? So let's actually get into this. The fertility says, and this is from academia.edu. Academia.edu. I might even put the link in the description if you want to read up on it yourself. There's a lot of information about this thing right here. So this deity right here. So it says the fertility cult goddesses are lunar deities, because as well as they are fertility goddesses, they're also moon goddesses, amongst a number of other things as well. Ancient civilizations have been aware of the similarity between the number of days of the lunar cycle and the menstrual cycle, so a woman's period. Blood sacrifice. Listen to this. Listen to this. Blood sacrifices are associated with the procreation act and the fertility rites. So within the fertility rituals, they're also engaging in blood sacrifices. The gods that they venerate, that they worship, demand blood. It ain't just, oh, you just get to do some fun shit. No, they demand blood, right? And they're taught about this behind the scenes. And so they engage in these practices. They're venerating the same deities from the pagan world. So they have to do the same, they have to engage in the same behaviors to venerate those deities as the people were doing way back then, thousands of years ago, right? Where did I start? Where did I stop? Okay, it says menstruation, the flood of blood, is considered as a fertilizer fluid preparing the fertile period of the female. When the woman is fertilized, the flood of blood stops and the female is pregnant. The goal is reached. When the young female has her first menstruation, puberty, it is a signal that she's able to be fertilized. When she loses her menstruation, menopause, she cannot be fertilized anymore. Listen to this. Human and further animal blood sacrifices, alcoholic drinks take part in the sexual rituals of the fertility cult. Do you see that? Right? Do you see that? Let's scroll up a bit. So you like this is the same deity, right? The Lajja Gauri. Look at this shit right here. Look at this. Now let's zoom in on that, right? Before we continue. Let's zoom in. You see what's going on right here, right? So down here at the bottom, you got a guy, he's laying there with an erect phallus. This is the Lajja Gauri in the middle. This is who they said Lajja Gauri is it means modest Gauri. What's modest about this, right? She got one dude up underneath her with an erect phallus. I guess that's another depiction of Lajja Gauri above her. And she got two cats next to her with erect phalluses, and she's gripping both of them. This is the type of shit that those chicks, these female rappers, when you see them doing that pose, this is what they're engaging in behind the scenes. They're getting bust down like crazy, and they're also sacrificing human beings and animals. You can't get any more clear than this, right? So let's continue on to let's continue on to Inanna, man. This is crazy. All right, so I've already went over the correlation or the parallels between Inanna and the Lajja Gauri. And basically that they're the same deity, just adapted into a different culture at a different time frame. Inanna is a Sumerian goddess, and the Lajja Gauri was worshipped in India. So let's get into it, right? And basically what I'm about to read here, the women who, like the rappers that I went over, the women who venerate this deity, they venerated the same way that it was done in the far ancient pagan world. It's still done today, right? So let's get into it. It says here in Sumer and later in Babylon, religious rituals involved sacred sexuality in the form of the sacred marriage, or Hieros Gamos, an act of simulating marriage between the fertility goddess Inanna/Ishtar and the shepherd god Dumuzi. And we're going to get into Dumuzi at another time. But all of these deities from the pagan world are still venerated today. In this act, the high priestess of Inanna would have intercourse with either the high priest or the king of the city. Through the sexual act, divine fertile energy was released on the land, ensuring good crops and productive herds. Sacred, because this is the thing, Inanna/Ishtar, they're the sacred prostitute goddesses, right? So it says here, sacred prostitution involved temple priestesses of Inanna/Ishtar having ritual sex with male visitors to the temple, again releasing the divine fertile energy. So whoever showed up with dick in hand, they had to get down. Same thing today. Whoever showed up with cock in hand, they gotta service that man, right? So where did I leave off? I looked away. I don't know where I left off at. Both of these practices, both of these sacred sexual practices existed for thousands of years in Mesopotamia. Guess what? Thousands of years later, those practices and cults and whatever they're getting into, it still exists today, right? And it says this: it is best to understand these rituals as a religious act of devotion to the goddess rather than as sex per se, right? After all, secular prostitutes plied their trade in Mesopotamian cities as well, right? So in other words, what they're trying to say to you is, when they were doing this, when they're engaging in these sexual rituals, is not to be looked at as like just a just a slut out here walking up and down the street, because they did that back then as well. It's to be viewed as like a religious ritual ceremony. They still do this today, like in the movie Eyes Wide Shut. Everybody, they're going up in the temple, and like what they do in the mansions today. They did that in the mansion parties of today that some of these celebrities like Cat Williams talked about. They did that shit in the temples back then, where everybody coming together. It's a big fuck fest. It's a ritualistic fuck fest, right? But I think I might close it. I think I might close it out right here. I might add something on to it. I'll see about that. But I'm gonna close it out right here for now. Peace.